You turn graves into gardens. You turn graves into gardens. Turn graves into gardens. Turn shame into glory. Turn shame into glory. You turn shame into glory. You turn mourning into dancing. Turn my mourning into dancing. You get beauty for ashes. Hey, you turn seas into highways. I love those highways. You turn seas into highways. Graves in the gardens. Graves in the gardens. I can hear the sound. Graves in the gardens. Rolling in the dancing. I can hear the sound. I can hear the sound. Hey, you turn thorns into armies. You turn thorns into armies. I can hear the sound. Thorns turning into armies. Here right now. Take those bones and turn it into armies. I can hear the sound of dry bones coming alive. I can hear the sound of dry bones coming alive. Hey, I can hear the sound of dry bones coming alive. I can hear the sound. Hands in your graves and treasures that fade. They have all died. They have all died. Hands in your graves is all died. Yeah. I can hear the sound of dry bones coming alive. I can hear the sound. 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 I can hear the sound of the river coming. I can hear the sound of the river coming down. I can hear the sound of the river coming down. I can hear the sound. I can hear the sound. 'Cause the river is here right now. The river is here. The river is here. The river is here right now. I can hear the sound. I can hear the sound. I can hear river's coming out. The river's coming out. Coming out of me. Coming out of you. The river's coming out. The river's coming out. The river's coming out. Coming out of me and coming out of you. Coming out, coming out, coming out, coming out. Coming out, coming out, coming out, coming out, coming out. Listen to the sound. Listen to the sound. Listen to the sound. I hear a sound. I hear a sound. I hear a sound. I hear a sound. Listen to the sound. Listen to the sound. Listen to the sound. Listen to the sound coming out of you. It's a beautiful sound that you've heard before. Listen to it. Hear the sound coming out of you. It's his sound. It's the Father's sound coming out of you. It's the sound of dry bones coming alive. Coming out, coming out. Rattling bones and growing flesh. Hey, oh. Father's put an army inside of us. Coming forth. Coming forth, coming forth, coming forth, coming forth, coming forth, coming forth. Release it, coming forth, the sound. I can hear the sound of the river coming. I can hear the sound of the river coming. I can hear the sound of the river. It's flowing right here. It's flowing right here. It's a river flowing out of your heart to my heart, to your heart. To your heart. I'll dance for you, the river sound. I'll dance with you. What can I bring to you, my King? What can I bring to you, my King? Dance for you. In your gardens, I'll dance for you. In your gardens, I'll dance for you. In your gardens, I'll dance for you. Gardens, I'll dance for you. Coming out, coming out, coming out, sound. Coming out, coming out. beauty coming out, placing the ashes, shame coming out in the glory. Your beauty coming out, placing the ashes, shame coming out in the glory. The sound, 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 sound of you, Father. Just in our frequencies, just in our frequencies, tuning in, tuning in. The sound coming out, tuning in, coming alive, the sound coming alive, sound coming alive.
That was beautiful. Beautiful, Tim. Beautiful. Appreciate you, brother. You know, it's really, really amazing. You know, I love all different styles of worship, But I tell you, I love the unique flavor that you carry because it's spontaneous. It's not in a hurry. I think so many times we want to cater to the crowd and it's got to be a song everybody knows and it's got to have a specific beat. As you're just strumming, there's just such a sound of heaven on the slow down strumming that you do. There's a message hidden within, and I know that's what you're doing. I know you're carrying this message hidden in the sound, and it's just beautiful. Not a lot of people recognize that today. You know, they're looking for their soul to be entertained rather than their spirit brought forth. But you carry spirit sound. It's just beautiful. Yeah. Anytime, man, you got a record yet, or we got to get you one. I'm wondering how clear these show up. I'll try to edit it and send you at least some audio copies. Who knows? You know, we're gonna hear yelling and screaming in there, but hey, you know. Next time, what we'll do is we'll go directly in and see if we can get a clean recording. Thank you again. Beautiful. Well, I know I say this every time, but I'm not going to keep you long tonight. It's been a long weekend, even though I love it, and we've been having a blast. Man, I'm ready to sleep. I don't know about the rest of you guys. Well, we've talked this whole weekend has been about it's all good. It's the all good gathering. Okay. So what we've been talking about is the goodness of God, things that prevent us from understanding the goodness of God, how we come into our origin, our identity, all about identity. Everything right now is about identity, isn't it? We're starting to cross over and we're coming out of some of the old churchianity mindset that kind of did away with the mind or did away with emotion, and it's only about the spirit. But you're a spirit and you're a body and you have thoughts and you have emotions. And so we've just been taught to repress, claim, and perform. And so tonight, I kind of want to close this out with dealing with the mind, because the mind has been neglected. And I think a lot of, and I'm going to take this down just a little bit because that's pretty loud. You guys are all up close tonight. There, that's a little bit better, right? So ears aren't piercing. You know, I mean, are you guys familiar with the term Gnosticism? Okay, Gnosticism. It was a big move, really a long time ago, but it's come back and forth. And really what the church ended up falling into, this deception, which was spirit is the only thing that's clean. Everything else is evil. The world's evil. Your mind is evil. Your body is evil. Everything else is it's just this black and white kind of mentality. But there's nothing wrong with your body. There's nothing wrong with your mind. There's nothing wrong with your emotions. There's definitely nothing wrong with your spirit. Problem is the way in which we have perceived that leads us to act out those perceptions. Like the word sin, for instance. The word sin, when you get down to the deep root in the singular, means mistaken identity. It's not who you are. That's why Paul said it's not I that sin, but sin that dwells in me. All right. And then you have the plural, which is behavior out of a mistaken identity. But we've claimed a sin consciousness, and we're coming to God as though he has unforgiveness. But I need God to forgive me. Well, love has never kept a record of wrong. What I need to do is learn how to forgive myself, and I'll quit acting foolishly in my life. Okay. And so a lot of the forgiveness we're dealing with is forgiving one another, forgiving ourselves. Love your neighbor as yourself. If God needs to forgive you, then God isn't God, and he has some resentment issues. And that's not how it works. That's how religion has posted God, to put on you a false identity in the first place. Ecclesiastes says that God made all men upright. All men. It was religion, and it was through the tree of knowledge that all men lost their identity, came into a mistaken identity in which we begin to live less than who we truly are as humans. See, human is not less than. It's not some lower place than spirit. Jesus comes on the scene as the Word made flesh, and he brings it all together. He says, by the way, this is what a real human looks like. God in God becoming flesh, right? The Word becoming flesh. As the Father sent me, I send you. As I am, so are you, right? And so we're one with God in that. And Jesus is the example of how we are to walk. And we know that Paul said, we have the mind of Christ. So the mind of Christ, and we think, well, what does the mind of Christ look like? You know, I mean, we don't really get a lot in the Gospels, except I only do what I see the Father doing. So let me give you just 4 keys. Jesus said these 4 times. I'm not going to turn to scriptures. You're going to know the scriptures when I'm telling you. And Jesus said this. He said, the Father has sent me, right? That's key number 1. If you don't know that where you're at is the perfect place to be, you're going to strive and struggle, and you're going to try to figure out what needs to change, because there must be something wrong with you, because you're in a situation usually of confrontation. That's usually when we want to run, right? When everything seems like, well, God can't be in this. Well, he that is born from above, born again, is like the wind. You don't know if you're coming or going. That's what it says there. So if I don't know where I'm coming or going, why do I need to continually figure out where I need to be? I mean, am I in the Father's hand and nobody can pluck me out? Then I'm right where I need to be. Okay? So coming into that rest is vitally important. But Jesus said, you know, the Father has sent me. Then he said, the Father is with me. Now, there's a couple different places, with me, in me. I just use both of those combined. With me and in me is the same thing to me, okay? Now, in other words, I know that right where I am is right where I need to be, but I'm also not left unequipped or alone where I'm at. The Father is with me, okay? The third one is, I only do that which is pleasing to the Father. Now, that's a tricky one, because Jesus pleasing the Father had nothing to do with his works. Because if it did, you better work to get to heaven like Jesus. It wasn't performance-based. What was pleasing to the Father was Jesus did not take upon himself a false identity. He didn't call himself a sinner. He wasn't sin conscious. Now, the Pharisees called him a sinner and a friend of sinners. But Jesus wasn't even a friend of sinners. That was the Pharisees' translation. That's what the Pharisees said. It's not what Jesus said. So when we hear preachers quoting, Jesus was the friend of sinners, based on the Pharisees' perspective of Jesus. Right? Jesus was always the friend of all humanity, sons and daughters, period. There isn't one person on the face of the earth that isn't a child of God or in his image. Now, they might not be awake yet, but yet God reconciled all humanity through Christ. Okay, whether asleep or awake, we're in them. Okay, we just need to wake up. The best way to wake people up is to be a revelation of love. Right? People will wake up. I mean, you know, nobody wants 21st century Christianity. A lot of people can't stand it. And the reason why is because it isn't good news. It's bad news. It's conditional love. And so the Father wants us to come in, and we should be, through each generation, we should be growing up into him who is the head. We learn from what we've walked through. We use it as a stepping stone, but let's keep moving. Let's go deeper. Let's go deeper into the place of unconditional love. Let's remove the conditions, okay? And so what is pleasing to the Father is to only receive how the Father sees me, even in the midst of the contradictions of my own scorecard, because it's not by works. Now, some people would say, well, Brian, people need to be held accountable for their actions. You can only be accountable where you can see. You can't hand a blind person a book and say, what's wrong with you? Why can't you read this? And then punish them because they could. You don't tell a cripple to run a race and then beat them with a stick because they fell over, you know? So, you know, God is not holding people accountable that can't see. That's what grace is for. Now, do we have repercussions? Yeah, we reap what we sow. And that's really what we bring on ourselves. God doesn't have to do anything. We beat ourselves up. But ultimately, receiving how the Father sees you is to only receive his version of you. Jesus made it plain. He said, it's my Father's pleasure to give you the kingdom. No strings attached. He then tells them, be perfect, even as your heavenly Father is perfect. Well, wait a second. Where are all the steps and rules, Jesus, to be perfect? Oh, he didn't say do perfect. He said be perfect. Be holy. He didn't say do holy. He said be holy. So that is a disposition. That's an embrace of how God sees me. Now, easier said than done. You can claim this till you're blue in the face. And guess what? The moment something triggers you, you're going to be right back in that mindset that says, no, I don't look anything like Jesus. The Father doesn't love me. I'm a disappointment, whatever. Okay. And so it's dealing with the mind. Whatever lens you see God in is the God of your own making. Why do you think the God of religion is so big? I mean, if I go online and I look at videos that are on spiritual warfare that are focused on devils and demons all the time, you'll see 10,000 likes. But you go on there and you watch videos that are on love and unity and grace, and you'll see a couple hundred. You can see where people's mindsets are at. Now, they're desperate to be free, but unfortunately, they're focused on demons, devils, and goblins rather than on Christ. Put your mind above. Think on that. What is it? Think on those things above. Whatever is pure, holy, just. See, wherever your mind is directed is what it is your experience. There is no brakes on your belief system. No brakes. There's just acceleration. So your mind was never meant to be the, how can I say it? You were never meant to think. I know that sounds weird, but you are actually in this plane of experience. You're a spirit, but you're also a human. So you're a spirit gazing into a human experience, okay? Now in this gazing in, on this plane of experience, we are emotional beings, not thinkers. We are not humans that think and feel. We are emotional beings that think. Completely different. So kind of like you've got in the Garden of Eden, you got the tree of life and you've got the tree of knowledge, right? And in your head, what do you have? Left brain, right brain, right? You got the tree of knowledge, you got the tree of life. You got two trees in your garden, all right? It's a lot of allegory in the scripture speaking of the garden as the garden of my mind, the garden of my heart. And so it's great that there's two naked people having a conversation with a talking snake and condemned for eating the apple, but that doesn't help me at all. So I need an allegory so I can figure out how I can put it in my life right now, right? To be doers and not hearers, right? Are you getting whacked over there, AJ? You're just totally just drunk. You can laugh out loud. It ain't going to interrupt. He's like going to bust a vein if he holds it in there. That's beautiful. Let it out, man. You gotta let it out.
Let it go.
Let it go. So then you have the fourth key. The fourth key is it's the Father doing the works. It's not me, but the Father in me doing the works. In other words, I'm just a participator. I'm just observing. I'm bearing witness to everything the Father is doing. Doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing physically. It's not about physically being still. It's about mentally not concluding, not trying to figure out. See, anything you try to figure, you disfigure. And instead, if we're just still, we'll transfigure, right? Don't think, just drink, right? Got to learn to drink, okay? It's great. All right, so we know that the seven spirits of God mentioned in Isaiah 11 is dealing with the mind of Christ. Understanding, wisdom, knowledge, counsel, might. Might is the volition to implement all the others, okay? The spirit of might is not, well, it might work. It's not that spirit, okay? It's the spirit of power and might. It's the enablement to now apply what has been discerned, seen, acted upon, faith with works, okay? Twice in there is the fear of the Lord mentioned. First, it's mentioned as the spirit of the fear of the Lord, and then it says that his delight was in the fear of the Lord. You guys are mature enough to know where the scriptures are. But what's amazing there is I thought, okay, what is the fear of the Lord? Because it's been taught to kind of be scared of God. And I don't believe God has given us a spirit of fear. So the fear of the Lord definitely has nothing to do with being afraid. Okay. You know, it's a holy awe. It's an awareness of the bigness of God. But there's another revelation that we need to partner with. Because he says in there that his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge by eyes or ears, but in righteousness. In other words, it discerns the intentions behind what the Father has called you into. The why behind the what. Just like I said before, it's not about what you believe, but why you believe it. If you don't know why you believe what you believe, you don't know what's driving you to perform it. Am I being led by the spirit of peace, or am I being led by rejection and fear? And am I trying to implement and get God to move on my behalf? I think we've seen enough of that in religion, right? Performance. And so it all comes down to what is driving me. Most of the time we don't know until we look back, right? Oh, God called me to do this. We fall on our face, everything falls apart, and we look back and we go, oh, now I can see I really didn't want to be where I was at. I felt like I wasn't good enough, and if I stepped out and did this, then people would love me. You see, so we find out afterwards, oh, see, now the fear of the Lord is to not judge by outward appearance. It's not to be led by the visible physical realm as my reality. Kingdom doesn't come by observation. The kingdom is within me. So discerning within, why do I feel this way? What am I really after in my pursuit? And it all comes down to emotion, okay? So emotion on this level, and this plane of experience, is emanating as spiritual motion in another realm. Moving of the spirit is emanating here as a ripple effect of the frequency of feeling. Now, when I say feeling, I'm not talking about emotionalism. Emotionalism is where people freak out and they only rely on their emotions, and they're really just trying to draw attention because they feel they don't have that affirmation. Now, why do people do that? Because they've repressed emotion for so long and never dealt with emotion. They become emotional in the sense of drawing attention or bringing confusion. Okay? So pay close attention to what you feel. Because here's the thing. We've been taught in the church to think our way out. So we claim the scriptures. We come to Christ feeling powerless, feeling less than, and then we accept Christ, but we accept it within that lens where we didn't want to feel that. So we undealt with pain. So now everything that's built is in the pursuit of powerless, not good enough. Now I've got to be approved of God by doing this, this, and this, instead of knowing that I have been approved of God because of his nature. Therefore, now I can do this, this, and this. So we're not trying to obey to be approved, where our obedience is the byproduct of approval. Make sense? Okay. And so to get from point A to point B, what do we got to walk through? Okay. Well, we got to, what does it say? In the world, you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world, right? We know. So it's already overcome. So now how do you overcome it? Well, Jesus, when he walked the earth, it says in John 1, in him was life, and the life was the light of all mankind, which means all of us were in him. So he took on the mind of all humanity, the mindset of all humanity in being separated from God and being a sin consciousness and all of this. And he put on every one of our mindsets and was tempted in every way that we are. Okay. But when he would take on that mindset and live in it as though it was personalized to him, he would then come into the Father's perspective and allow our mindsets to flip over into the Father's perspective of how God saw the situation. All right. And so every time you get a breakthrough and renew your mind, you didn't just get renewed. You just entered the remembrance of the walk of Jesus. You just stepped right in, because God lives outside of time, right? And when did he finish everything? From the foundation of the world. God hasn't worked since then. So all the works you're experiencing is an echo of a completed work. You're just becoming conscious of that which is finished, right? It's already finished. Because sometimes it don't feel like it's finished, does it? Because we're like, well, God, if it's already finished, why I feel like I'm finished in the other opposite direction. Right? But you're journeying out an echo of that which is complete. Book of remembrance. Do this in remembrance. Remembrance is an eternal word, right? Yep, that's my wife getting whacked again. It's beautiful. So now there's two words in Scripture, world and earth. Do you know the world and earth are two different things when you look at it symbolically and spiritually? In the world you'll have tribulation, not in the earth. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. The knowledge of the glory of God is already in the earth. His glory is in all the earth, Isaiah 6, right? And then Habakkuk, depending on how you pronounce it, the book of Habakkuk, or if you're like dessert, so you can call it Habakkookie, okay? And so, you know, in that book, it says that as the oceans cover the sea, so shall the knowledge of the glory of God cover the earth. It also says in the Beatitudes, Jesus said, the meek shall inherit the earth. So when you're dealing with the earth, you're dealing with the spiritual mind. And when you're dealing with the world, you're dealing with the carnal mind. In the world, you will have tribulation. All right? Carnal mind is death. Spiritual mind is life and peace. It's real simple. We know when we're in a carnal mind because we're constantly battling everything. And most of all of our battle is really against ourselves. See, you don't have any enemies. You have no enemies, only yourself. You deal with yourself, you can love those that don't like you. You might be their enemy, but they're not yours. You know. And so this is where we get Psalms 23, where it talks about, I prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. But what is going on next? My head is anointed with oil. My cup runs over. Surely mercy and goodness shall follow me all the days of my life. What does that mean? That's a perspective of your journey, where you look into your journey and you realize, okay, I'm just going to have to sit down and get to know myself. And I need to love myself in these areas where I've compartmentalized myself. I've separated myself from myself. I've repressed my childhood here. I've condemned myself over there. So I need to set a table of communion for my own belief system. And I need to start loving myself in these areas. I need to let the Father come in and reinterpret some of the things I took personally, right? And then what happens? I now begin to look and I realize, wow, my whole journey was really about goodness and mercy follow me all the days of my life. It really wasn't devastation. It was revelation. It was reconciliation. See, Jesus, he was able to walk through stuff. And he said, as the Father sent me, I send you. Greater works than these shall you do. So the key here is, how do we walk like Jesus, where he received everything is from the hand of God? Everything. Yeah. You don't see any, 5-step program, or he doesn't give us a clue of how he's doing it, but he does. It's really simple. Everything that happened was the Father, through his life, for the purpose of redemption. So everything you walk through is going to bring redemption into somebody else's life. Okay? Paul said, death works in me that life may work in you. So I'm going to walk through my carnal mind and my struggles so that somebody else can get free. Now, doesn't mean you're left without. You come to that revelation, which begets freedom. But you're journeying through it for more than just getting out of it. See, I think a lot of times we're trying to get out of something instead of understanding the why behind the what of the intentions of God for being in it in the first place. I mean, if God is ordering my steps, and I'm stepping in stuff I don't want to step in, then there's a purpose to it that's beyond what I can reason or understand, right? So when we look at scriptures like the pure in heart shall see God, does that mean you better get all your T's crossed and your I's dotted so that you can see God? No. It has nothing to do with your fleshly behavior. You ain't awakened because you got it all right in your flesh. You're awakened because of the nature of God and because of his love and because of who he is, right? And so whenever you're dealing with mindsets and different things like this, we have to understand that we are on a journey in which the Father allows us to be blindfolded for a reason and for a season, because he's really teaching us that there's nothing you've got to do to attain. But what do we got to do? We got to burn out with trying to attain first. You know, I had this dear woman of God in Alabama. We do meetings over there. Everybody calls her Mama Faye. And she always say that with her Alabama accent. She'll say, Brian, you got to strive till you can't strive no more. You got to deal with the man of sin in the temple. See, the man of sin in my temple is my ego. You know? Now, again, remember we talked about either nothing wrong with your ego. The unrenewed ego is the problem. But you get renewed in the spirit of your mind, and your ego, which is part of your personality, can now manifest the diversity of Christ in you, the hope of glory. So it's really amazing. It's beautiful. Okay. I know I was going somewhere else with that, but anyway. So Jesus, he received everything from the hand of God that happened. It also says that he grew in wisdom, favor, and stature with God and with man, which means he didn't start out having all the revelation. He got revelation the same way you do, in the moment. You know, when he said to Peter, the Son of Man's going to suffer, he knew he was going to suffer, but he didn't know the details until that moment. And then he didn't even have the Father's perspective when he told Peter, because all he got was a satanic response. But then, what do we see? He's taken up on the mount. He gets the taste of what's going to come through that whole situation, the transfiguration. And Moses and Elijah tell him what he's about to suffer. Well, I thought he already knew. He knew from a human perspective, but now he had to see it, the glory that would come and be revealed in him. Remember, the present suffering is nothing compared to the glory that shall be revealed. So if you can see the glory in the midst of the opposite in your situation, you will now be able to partner with grace to get where you need to go. Okay. So now, you guys like Doctor Strange? I don't know. You like Doctor Strange? I think it's cool, man. Doctor Strange, the Marvel comic movie. The new one's out, I believe, right now, right? Is the new one's out? Yeah. The multiverse. Yeah, guys got to go to the theater and see it. But anyway, he had what's called the mirror dimension. And so anytime he would fight his enemies, and he couldn't overcome them in the real world, he'd like open up this mirror dimension and suck them in, and he'd capture them in the mirror dimension, right? And it was just a dimension where he had control of folding everything in on itself. Well, we kind of live in the mirror dimension. Let me give you a scripture on this mirror dimension, okay? This is in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And it says here, verse 17, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we look not at the things which are seen, but the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. So what we have is, we have a reflective realm known as this natural realm, which is paralleling stuff that's going on in the spirit realm. But the spirit realm is the plain speech, and the visible realm is the parable speech. Okay, makes sense? Everything is likened unto the kingdom, but the kingdom is within you. All right, follow me so far? I'm not going as deep tonight because I want y'all to catch it. I know I've just been going over people's heads this weekend. So is this more plain for you, more subtle? Okay, all right. I try to have a down-to-earth message at least once. But you'll notice here that it's dealing with light affliction. Now, God calls it a light affliction. How many of you have experienced in your afflictions it being a light affliction? Now, this light affliction doesn't mean the absence of weight. It means the absence of darkness. It's a light, let there be light affliction. Okay, that's why his yoke is easy and his burden is made of light. See, it's not just lifting a burden. It's about that which is carrying revelation. carrying the keys that you need, the very desire of your heart, and everything you cried out for what you wanted from God. And then all the opposite stuff happened. And you said, God, I thought you said, and you think you're under attack when you're really not. God's like, I'm answering you. But first, I got to deal with what's driving you to desire those things. Because you're desiring it out of lack, not being complete in me. You're desiring it out of fear because you think something can be stolen from you. Fear has torment, right? So again, back to the intentions, all right? And so when we're dealing with, and I shared earlier, the pure in heart shall see God. What is the pure in heart? Those that have received how the Father sees them, sees the Father in everything. I want to say in Timothy, it says, to the pure, all things are pure, but to the defiled, nothing is pure. As long as you believe you're less than how the Father sees you and that you're not his righteousness in Christ, then you will not be able to enjoy anything he gives you because you'll still question whether you're worthy to receive it. Okay? Boom, boom, boom. All right, so we're looking from a perspective that's dealing with our lens. That's why it says in the scripture in Colossians 1:21, we were alienated and enemies in our minds. There's, the God of our own making and the devil of our own making. Okay? It's based on, do you know that your view of God is based on how you view you? It ain't even based on how much you read the scriptures, because it's going to be filtered through how you view you. If you believe you're fully loved and received by the Father, then when you read the scriptures, you won't be focused on God being a judgmental, wrathful, angry God that's coming to destroy you. You'll be more focused on the grace and the love of the Father through Christ. But we have people out there that want to claim anything that bad happens is God wanting to kill a bunch of people. That's the God of the Old Testament, not the God of the New Testament. The God of the Old Testament has always been the God of the New Testament. He only looks like an angry jerk in the Old Testament because of the people that perceived him under the law, under condemnation. So when you're under the law of condemnation, God is an angry, wrathful God ready to throw you away. So he didn't get anger management somewhere in between there and all of a sudden become loving. He was always loving, and that's why the scripture is showing every person's lens in which they perceive God. Okay? And so it's there. That's your inheritance. This is a mirror. This mirrors back to you where you're at in the way in which you perceive yourself in God. Right? Okay? Remember, I'm giving you just one side of this. There's multiple layers and multiple ways we can see it, okay? It's just one side focused on how you perceive, okay? And so when I'm in the pure in heart, I've just simply received how the Father sees me. All of a sudden, my whole experience begins to change. Now, the problem is I can't just claim it. Remember those times we get our breakthrough? We're great for about a week. You know what's amazing? Jesus never said to the crippled man, rise up and limp. And we'll get you down to the physical therapist and you'll be better than you were before. He never did that. He didn't heal people halfway. All right? And I think a lot of times that's what we see in churchianity is we have all these reasons why people lose their miracles. You can't lose what's always been yours. Kingdom is within you. You're not getting anything that you're asking for in your walk. It's being pulled out of you. The kingdom is within you. Okay? Before you call, I will answer. Right? He commanded the end from the beginning. He authored and finished your faith before you were formed in the womb. So he granted you the measure of faith, and it's his. So we can't boast in anything in the sense of needing to obtain anything. We are unveiling everything. Amen? Okay. I'll try to talk slower. I know I talk fast. But so how do we get there? So remember I said you have your tree of life and tree of knowledge of good and evil. All right? You have your intellectual belief and you have your experiential belief. No matter how much you study, we got our little dictionary on the left side of our brain, our intellect. our reasoning is kind of connected over to the right, but it's really connected depending on what side of the brain you're using. If you're using your intellectual side to reason, then reason is treason. It's against the law of the spirit of life in Christ Jesus. It's you trying to figure out, and that's the knowledge that puffs up. But if your reason is not moving from the left side, but encompassed through the creative side, then your reason is revelation. You know, and that's where God says, come, let us reason together. You see? All right. So when you're dealing with these mindsets, you live from your experience. You don't live from what you've learned intellectually. You can claim, my God shall supply my every needs. Lose your job tomorrow, and what you feel is what you believe. But what we've been taught is don't feel that, push it down, and claim this. So we build up an intellect, and we bury our pain, and it keeps popping up. And we're still trying to get God to move, and we're frustrated because we're not seeing the fruit that Jesus produced in his own ministry. But we are now seeing that fruit, are we not? Yes. Maintenance-free Christianity. God does not need your 2 cents worth. In fact, most of our prayers he doesn't need. All our prayers to get God to do something out of the wrong agenda. It's already done. Simply enjoy, live, and live in the adventure. You know, it's actually very simple and practical. You love people, you love one another, you love yourself, you love God, and you be a revelation of Christ wherever you go. Ministry isn't something you do, it's who you are. You are the ministry of Christ, right? So earlier I said, Jesus didn't say rise up and limp, right? And he also didn't say to the blind man, you're healed for 364 days, but on the 365th day, you're going to lose your sight again. So we see that people lose their miracle because they received their miracle based on their intellect, but their experience is the opposite. So the moment a situation arises that triggers that emotional pain back here, they immediately lose contact with that which was always theirs. So now they're no longer experiencing the truth that is actually completely surrounding them, but they're now blind to it because they've got the veil of intellectual conclusion. Your intellect, when you're not led by your intellect, but your experiential, emotional side has now been untwisted. Your conclusions have been removed, your opinions have been removed, and the Father's view of your journey has been placed in those areas of your life. Now your intellect will be animated from the faith and heart of God. And now you'll begin to articulate, and then you can reason and you can think, and because all those faculties of the mind will be reanimated through spiritual reality, through love. Man, I'm feeling a realm right now. You know? Feeling that charismatic realm. I'm a charismaniac tonight. I'm just messing with you, Jackie. Little inside joke there. But anyway. I said I would behave. Some churches don't want to invite me. They're not sure what I'm going to do. Okay, so everybody was getting whacked last night and flying all over the place. It was wonderful. But man, I was sore when I got up this morning. I worked out a lot last night. So, since we live from our experience more than our intellect, how do we get there? Well, we're going to talk about that. Let's say you're walking through a forest and you see a brown crooked thing on the ground. Your mind doesn't go to the dictionary and start looking under brown crooked things. You immediately go, snake! And then you stop and you look and go, oh, stick. So afterwards, my intellect came in and said, stick, snake, stick. Well, at least it's under the S. Okay, figured out. All of a sudden, your heart rate goes back down in peace and calm. But in that moment, anxiety hits you. You responded out of either what you experienced on TV or what has been previously experienced was thrown into the present in that moment, okay? How many of you hate spiders? I don't like big hairy spiders. I'll scream like a girl if and Shauna sometimes has to be the one to kill the spiders. You know, I'll get the vacuum out. You know, by the time I get there, it's already crawled away. You know, but if I took a rubber spider and I put it on your shoulder and you didn't know it was a rubber spider, would you have the same reaction as it was a real one? Yes, you would, until you realized it was a big spider. Well, how many rubber spiders do you have in your life that you have taken personally as the real thing? Those are called conclusions, lies you have believed. 2 Corinthians 10 says, the weapons of my warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, dealing with vain imagination, everything that has exalted itself against the knowledge of God, or that which intellectually tries to repress what is hidden of the treasures of God in my experience. Okay? What's in the darkness? Treasures. What's darkness? Lie-based thinking. Now, remember, darkness isn't always bad. Darkness can be a mystery hidden. And really, darkness isn't bad at all. But in our conclusion of trauma, darkness feels bad. Yeah. Let me give you an example here. Let's say this bottle of water, just the bottle itself, not the water inside, is an event in your childhood, okay? A negative event. And we'll talk about trauma in a minute. Let's say it's a traumatic event way back here, okay? It wasn't the event that traumatized you. The water in it is my conclusion of me. So whatever you concluded of who you are and who you're not in that trauma is what stores the negative emotion, which becomes a trigger. All right? You know what a trigger is, right? A trigger is basically somebody pushes your button, right? But what do we think? We think that the person that said something to us or didn't hear us, we all of a sudden, I felt unheard. You weren't even listening to me. I'm upset with you. You were disrespectful. Now, maybe they were being disrespectful, but what are we really reacting out of? We're not reacting out of the present. We're reacting out of this past place where I screamed and screamed and screamed in the crib and nobody came. There is no such thing as your present situation that can cause you pain, because your mind don't work that way. Your mind works by association of where it's been, not where it's at. But you're not conscious of it. It's the subconscious that says, we've been here before. This is how we did it. This is how we're going to do it. And it's like lightning that quick, and we react. Knee-jerk reaction. So if I came and brought the little hammer at the doctor's office and hit you right there, your leg would jump. It'd be an automatic reaction, right? All right. Triggers are automatic reactions. And what do? We condemn ourselves. We evaluate ourselves. We try to perform to not do it again. And all we do is repress it even more. Okay. So stop repressing and stop condemning. Let's deal with it in a healthy way. Okay. And it's real simple. It's called embrace your pain. Embrace your pain. Oh, that sucks, doesn't it? Nobody wants to embrace their pain. Now, taking your thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ is not handcuffing yourself and throwing yourself in prison, okay? It means to embrace, like to hug, because the vain imaginations in your mind are based in perceptions and conclusions about yourself. Things you've judged about you based on what others told you, others did. And there's kind of two kinds of situations where we experience trauma. One is bad things happening to me. The other is the absence of good things. So you can have a family that never yelled at you and told you you're worthless, but they never told you good job. Okay? You can have, and there isn't a parent on the face of the earth that hasn't screwed up their kids somewhere. Where it's all an experiment. Nobody knows what they're doing. Okay, we learn as we go. But so parents should never feel any condemnation in the sense of still holding on to it. Their kids are going through something. We did the best we could with where we're at. But the good thing is the Father allows triggers. If you didn't have a trigger, you would have no place to get to your past. So the trigger is the bridge for you to be restored. But if you didn't have a trigger, you wouldn't be able to restore the years that the locust and the cankerworm has eaten. Now, how can you restore it? You can't go back and change the past. No, you can't, but you can change your perspective of the past. Paul said this, forgetting that which is behind and pressing on to that which is ahead. Now, many have taken that as you just need to leave the past alone. Well, that's great, because usually when we say that, it's because we don't want to face our pain. God told Moses, remember that I delivered you out of Egypt. So he was told to tell the children of Israel to remember what they came out of. Paul's saying, forget the past. What is he really saying? If you read the context of what Paul is talking about, he is not talking about your past pain. What he was talking about was his own life. And he was talking about forgetting the religion he learned to persecute Christianity in the first place. It was all the performance-based stuff to measure up. Forgetting those things. Letting go. Remember, he says, I count all things as dung that I might gain Christ. Okay? It was all of his religious upbringing and head knowledge. That's what he was leaving behind and forgetting behind. Okay? It wasn't his own triggers. All right? So we get triggers on both sides, but I call them glimmers. So a trigger is something is pressing against a lie you have believed about yourself emotionally that's in the past and is emanating into your present situation. Okay. A glimmer is you're in a moment where somebody has a word or something is going on in the spirit, and it quickens you and begins to wake you up in the glory. You begin to enter into the book of remembrance. You remember the Lord, right? Doesn't it say in the Old Testament that all shall turn and remember him? All shall be taught by God, from the least to the greatest. Okay? So we wake up at these different times, right? Sometimes we lose consciousness, right? We get stuck, we forget. We're like Jesus in the wilderness, if you're the Son of God, right? We begin to question who we are, who we're not. So when you feel, and here's a good example. Let's say in the present situation, let's say you're at your job and your boss freaks out on you. But your childhood back here, your parents were always trying to live their life through you and just wanted perfection and just kind of drove you to perform, to excel, because maybe in their mindset, they believe they were failures, and now they're going to redeem themselves by living their life through you and make sure that you're not a failure. I know I'm speaking to people. Some of you are going to get triggered because I'm pulling from your experiences in the spirit right now. Okay. And that's all I can talk about is who's in the room, right? And so now you're in a situation where you're not measuring up in front of your boss. Now you're triggered, but you think it's your boss that's the problem. Your boss is your deliverer. It's called the mirror dimension. Everything you believe is going to reflect back at you. See, we have the kingdom within, but we're not aware of the subconscious that is sabotaging us at every turn, subliminally, with setting us up, because all that pain is stored in our belief system, emotionally, our emotional belief system or our experiential belief, okay? You guys follow me? Yes. And so what do you do in that situation? Well, you simply feel. Okay, now, Father, what am I feeling here when my boss is doing this? I'm going to use what he's doing to renew my own mind here, because everything that happened to Jesus, even Judas Iscariot, only fulfilled that which was written concerning him. So we can't control what everybody does, but we can control how it affects us and how we're going to respond. So let's use it all instead of trying to live in some perfect, nirvana or paradise and sheltered from the world. Let's walk in the world, but not be of the world. Let's not be entangled with the cares of this life. Okay, so you feel, but we're not taught to feel. We're taught to think. Well, it's going to take some time to let go of your thinking and start feeling. So you feel. What does this make me feel like? Well, I feel invalidated. I feel unheard. All right, I'm going to feel that. I'm going to let myself feel that, because what I'm doing is I'm following the scent. Just like if you were out camping and you went on a hike and you're like, and dinner's going to be ready soon. You know it's going to be cooked, and you're like, man, I can't remember where the trail is. All of a sudden you smell, oh, that's dinner. Okay, I'm just going to follow the scent of that all the way back to the camp. I'm going to follow the scent. And so you're following the scent of the original belief that actually caused you to be driven in the first place. All right? And so you follow it back and you say, okay, now, Father, I'm going to feel this. So I'm going to feel unheard. This is what I believe about myself. I'm unheard. I'm invalidated. I'm not good enough. Now, Father, can you take me to the first time I ever believed this? And you're going to, all of a sudden, you won't have to look. Memory will pop up because your mind already knows where it is. And all of a sudden, you're in this memory over here. And now you're feeling angry. Well, now you got to deal with the anger. Anger is what's called a guardian lie. Okay. Anger is something we learn to use to cope with before we understood how to feel. Okay. So anger isn't an emotion, it's protecting emotion. It'll not just come in the form of anger and rage, it'll come in the form of frustration. We think frustration is an anger, but it's the same thing. But it sounds good to call it frustration because then I can keep it. Okay? Denial is another one, and you'll know when you're really angry because you're numb. I've led people in a lot of these sessions. I call them shift sessions, SHIFT. Sometimes I get a little lisp when I'm talking here, but we all get shift-faced in these sessions, okay? And it means sanctify historical illusions, finding truth. And it's not memory therapy. We've worked with people that have gone through memory therapy, and it's just creating walls in between what you feel. It's not actually changing what you feel. So when we hear scriptures like beauty for ashes, just as you were singing that before, beauty for ashes, oil of joy for mourning, this is about a divine exchange. This is about seeing how the Father saw your history. Because if you ever noticed, most of your suffering is in the absence of understanding the purpose of what you're in. But you get a purpose behind what you're in, and you can walk through it. That's why my present suffering, if I see that it's all about the glory being revealed in us, then it's nothing. It's a moment of light affliction because my affliction is birthing light. Okay? I don't believe you have to suffer for God as God is testing you to see if you're worthy enough to be in his presence. I don't believe in that. I used to. And I always failed the test. Because I was always looking not to mess up. And what happens when my son does that? He'll be watching me and I'll say, hey, go ahead and clean up those crumbs. And he's like, because he's waiting to see, making sure he does it. But I say, why are you looking at me? And then he spills them all over the floor, because he doesn't want to mess up. He unfortunately inherited that from me. That's how I was. I was always afraid of screwing it up, and guess what would happen? I'd screw it up out of my fear of screwing it up. So we have to be able to let go of that and relax. So you feel. Now, when you come to the place of anger, you will not be able to get to the source and origin of your pain unless you deal with that anger. Here's a good way. Ask yourself questions. And here's what's awesome. You can put scenarios that aren't even true out there, just to test what's motivating you in a good situation. Remember, the tree of knowledge is good as well as evil. So just because it's good don't mean it's God. In that sense of what's the intentions behind what we're doing. Okay. We can want to get into a relationship because it's a good idea, but we're really feeling alone. And when we feel alone, we feel in love. So we're really getting in a relationship for help, which we should be going to a therapist instead of a relationship. Because what happens when you get in a relationship based on help that's trying to look like love is it's a one-sided relationship where the other person is giving and giving and giving, and one or the other ain't going to receive. It's going to be a give and give, not a give and take. Okay. So, you check your heart. So what would you do in that situation? Okay, what does it feel like to not be able to be with this person that I want to be with? Oh, well, I just feel rejected. Okay, now you know what's driving you to want to be with them. Rejection. Because what surfaces is exposing what's been motivating you to obtain it. You can't just get an emotion because you thought about it. You can only manifest the emotion you already had. First 7 years of your life is where you learn the program. That's it. After that, your hard drive is set for that program. So now you're not even living your life, you're living your parents' life. It's true. You will live your parents' life for that first 7 years, and you'll live it, okay? Until you change your program. Because children, they don't learn by verbal speech. I mean, sure, you can teach them their ABCs and mommy and daddy and all of that, but they're picking up on the frequency of you in the way in which you deal with conflict, in the way in which the marriage and the couple speak to one another. They're observing the emotional experience because they don't have a vocabulary. So they have an emotional belief with no words. You ever be in a situation that became stressful and all of a sudden confusion would hit you and it was big and you're just like, man, I just don't even know what to do. Just confused. Most of the confusion is proverbial. Ask the Father to take you back to the place where that confusion came in, and you'll find yourself in childhood memories where you didn't have verbal speech yet. You couldn't identify with what you felt. And things were never explained to you. Train a child in the way they shall go, and when they're old, they shall not depart. Remember that one? Do you know that has nothing to do with giving them Bible verses? Do you know that that scripture says, this is what it actually means. It says, train a child in the way they shall go, and when they get hair, they shall not depart. It's when they hit puberty. Do you know that there are chemicals in a child's brain that are withheld until puberty? It's called the age of accountability. In a courtroom, when a child reaches a certain age, usually during puberty, they can, if there's a divorce, they can then choose which parent to be with. Before that, they're not allowed because they cannot discern correctly the situation. Most children, when a divorce happens, they blame themselves because the chemicals that are withheld are the chemicals that balance reason to enable you to be responsible for your part and let other people be responsible for their part. But a child takes responsibility for everything in their world. So if my son comes up to me and says, Daddy, look at this picture I drew. And I said, I'm busy. And I never go back and look at that picture or explain, I'll look at it in a moment. I don't train him in the way he shall go. And I leave it unanswered. Guess what that my son just received? Daddy really doesn't like my picture. Therefore, he doesn't like me. So if I do not bring affirmation in that area, guess what's going to happen? My son is going to grow up with a complex, and he's going to do one of two things. He's either going to try to earn love from everybody around him, or he's going to pretty much put a facade of anger on and protect himself from love as though he's just kind of given up on people. Okay, so we go through that. Just like, and I'm going to be a little graphic tonight, but just like, we've worked with people that have come out of satanic ritual abuse. We've worked with people that have come out of rape and incest. And sexual abuse is one of the big ones that really devastate people, because when somebody, and I know we got people in here who have gone through that, when a child has been molested or raped or anything like that, the lie is that they're unclean and defiled. And there's this shame. There's another thing that was very similar to shame we call tainted. Usually when we feel shame, it's because I did something wrong. But when something was done to me, it's really this taintedness, like I'm unclean. But the Father will come in and say, it wasn't you. You were never defiled. It was the person doing it to you that was defiled. They defiled themselves. You're pure. You're holy. And you'd be surprised. You do not need God to explain or talk you into stuff. When you feel that pain and you go back to that source and origin where that original event happened, God will come in there and say, you're safe now. You're okay. I'm there. He doesn't need to explain it. This is where we see with a word, he healed the multitudes. I always ask, what's that word? Just give me that word. Well, the word is, you're okay now. You're not there. I'm with you. I love you. You're clean. You're mine. Right? Isn't it beautiful? Yes. I'm the poster child for this stuff because I was messed up. And I had all the gifts and power of the Holy Ghost, and I was like a child with power tools. You know, took me years to stop sabotaging myself and destroying my own ministry and blaming it on the devil. Okay. So if you're in this situation where, now let me go back to anger here for a second, because I never finished this. Because we're going to actually do it. Are you up for that still tonight, or do you want to wait? It's completely up to you.
My body's like in anxiety, but I'll do it.
Oh, if you're in anxiety, it's a perfect time to do it.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to do a demonstration session. I'm going to do a mini session, about 15, 20 minutes, if you guys are up for that in just a few minutes. And we'll have your back to the camera so nobody is seeing your face, but you will have a microphone because we want to be able to hear, okay? We've done a couple sessions live. She's bold enough to spill the beans. Then that's good, okay? But when we're dealing with anger, we can't get to the lie of being unheard or I feel alone, therefore I'm unloved. We can't get there if anger has been protecting it. Right? So how do we deal with anger? Well, we got to ask the question, what does it feel like to not have the right to be angry? Now, most people say, oh, I feel great if I wasn't angry. That's not the question. The anger was my escape from feeling the pain. It is my addiction. You know, you can be addicted to emotion. Do you know your cells become addicted to the emotion that is regular in your life? Do you know that if you have anger throughout your life, your cells will crave it just like your body craves sugar, and it will constantly crave it until you finally set up a situation to be angry to feed your cells. It's nuts, isn't it? Do you know that anger actually poisons your blood for 3 days? For 3 days, your blood is poisoned. Toxic for 3 days. You have a day of rage. Now, we all have anger subconsciously in it. There isn't a person in the room that isn't angry with God somewhere in their history. We all got it, and God still loves us because he knows the appointed time of unveiling this stuff, right? At the appointed time when Christ is revealed. So don't worry about what needs to be fixed in your life. Use the mirror dimension, the present situation, because that's what the Father says you're ready to deal with. That's why you don't have to go digging into your past to try to figure out what you need to fix. Use the present situation and quit running from the present situation. Embrace the pain. Follow the sense. Once that anger comes up, all right, what does it feel like to not be able to protect myself from feeling this pain? What does it feel like to not have the right to be angry? Well, it feels like, you know, I'm going to get hurt again. I'm unsafe. I feel like it's injustice. All right, focus in on that. Now, Father, if Joe lets go of his right to be angry in this memory, will there be injustice? Will he be unsafe? Let's just see what he says. No. I believe I'll be okay. I believe he'll be with me. Okay. So do you believe now, based on what the Father has revealed to you, that you can give up your right to be angry? Yes, I can do that. And instantly it'll lift. Now, what's amazing is if you ask the person, you skip that whole process and you say, now, are you willing, Joe, to give up your right to be angry to get to your pain? They will say 100% of the time, yes. So there's been a couple times people say no, because that anger has become their comfort, their protection. And at least I'm glad they're honest, because we can work with that. But you can ask somebody, are you willing to give up your right to be angry? And they'll say, yeah. And I'll say, go ahead and give it to God. All right. So they'll give it to God. And I'll say, now focus in on this event again. Where your mom, left you at the store and never came back. And you didn't know who your dad was. And what does that feel? Well, I feel angry. Well, I thought you just gave it to God. You can't. You can't talk yourself out of the lies you believed, and nobody else can. God can't even do it at an intellectual level. You have to take your thought captive. You have to embrace your pain, and you have to allow yourself to go back to the source of where it came in. Now, what's great about this is you don't have to go to every memory. There are just a few big ones, and it becomes like a domino effect, and it translates through your whole history. It's called renewing your mind. You can read this till you're blue in the face. You'll get a little bit, but it's going to be surface if you got a lot of triggers. In fact, many a times the truth can keep you in bondage if you're using it to escape your pain rather than deal with your pain. It'll just be religion. That's the traditions of men that make the word of God of none effect. Okay? And so when we deal with our pain, when we allow ourselves to feel, here's what's amazing. You said you're feeling anxiety, right? Anxiety and excitement are the same emotion. They exhibit everything the same. Same physical responses, heart rate, blood pressure, flushing of the face, all of that. So is there such thing as anxiety? No, there's only excitement. Problem is, it's the way in which we perceive ourselves is what we experience. As a man thinks, so is he, even if it's not true. Okay? So in this place, when you're dealing with some of these emotions, I'm going to give you a list. I'm trying to sum up literally about 12 hours of training in one sitting here. But when you start to feel, you need language. There's not enough language on emotion today. How many of you have heard of Brene Brown? I'd encourage you to watch her. She's got a series on HBO Max called The Atlas of the Heart. There's a whole season there, and she goes through 80-something emotions. And she uses visual, movies, and poetry to describe it rather than just logical stuff, so that you can relate to it. It is amazing. I've only watched like 2 or 3, and I'm just blown away. Now, she does cuss a little bit on there, but you know what? Who cares? She's walked through it. You're going to get something out of it, okay? I don't know if she's a believer or not, but she knows a lot about emotion. And so we can glean from everyone, right? And so check her out. Let me give you just a list of emotions. Shame, inadequacy, which would be invalidation or rejection. They kind of go together. Powerless, helpless, hopeless, alone, or abandonment. Okay, these are just a few, right? But these are the main ones. So when you're feeling something, you go, well, what do I feel? Well, I feel terrible. Well, terrible isn't telling you anything. Terrible is your intellect wanting you to not feel these things anymore. See, our intellect will try to escape out of feeling. So you'll have all these justifications. I've done some sessions on people where, we get them back to a memory over here with whatever, a sibling or Uncle Joe or whatever, and they'll start feeling the pain, and all of a sudden they'll say, yeah, but Uncle Joe and I, we just talked 2 years ago and we've reconciled all this stuff, so really I don't need to go there. And what is going on? Their intellect is trying to stop them from dealing with their pain, because it doesn't matter what you think today looking back. You can look back today and say, well, I was just a kid for believing that. That's not a big deal. And today you're fine intellectually, but experientially and emotionally, back here as that child, you're still living in that moment. You have to deal with that emotion. Emotion is spiritual motion, okay? From one dimension into another. So we have to deal with it. Everything that we are viewing and experiencing in our life is through the lens of emotion, emotional belief. Remember, when I say emotion, I'm not talking about goosebumps and just feelings. I'm talking about feelings that has a perspective of you, okay? There's different types of lies that we believe. You could have a lie that you believe by osmosis. It wasn't something that you remember happening. Like I remember I was told by my mom and by my siblings that Brian, you were an accident. You weren't supposed to be born, okay? And my dad tried to kill me in my mother's womb. He put on the steel-toe boots when he found out, started kicking her in the stomach to kill me, okay? I came out of like Moses' days, running from Pharaoh. So, I came out of some hard stuff, but that's what God called me through that for a purpose for other people to come out of that, for restoration. So I don't regret my past now, but for a long time I did. But what did I do? I sabotaged myself. I didn't care whether I lived or died. I was suicidal at the age of 4, okay? Now, why was I that? Because the lie I had believed was I had no purpose. So why not destroy myself? I wasn't meant to be here. I'm just an accident. I'm an outsider. I'm not a part of anything. You see how that works? And every year from that time on, there'd be some teacher or some situation to reconfirm that I am those things. Anybody relate? Okay. So now it's justified, and if you spiritualize it, it's a confirmation. And then we grab the scriptures and we're looking through that lens, and God looks like he's disappointed with you. And you can't measure up to him. And he's blessing everybody but you. So you're on the outside again. But it's all through your own illusions. Okay? But I learned that lie through osmosis. I don't remember it in the womb, my dad trying to kill me. I didn't have no memory of it. I couldn't think of that. But I was told it, therefore I believed a lie because I was told it. Okay, and yet I've lived out that experience. There's lies called thematic lies. A thematic lie, the great thing about the thematic one, you can find it anywhere in your life. So you don't always have to go find your first time it ever happened. Usually when you start to feel the pain of a present situation and you're allowing yourself to feel, what am I feeling and what do I believe about myself when I feel this? That's the two questions you're going to ask yourself. When you do that, what's going to happen is you're going to see if it's the thematic lie. You're not going to go back to a childhood memory. You're going to see like a flash of like 10 memories go. Which one do I pick? Oh, it's proof it's a thematic lie. I see it everywhere. Just pick the big ones that are highlighted. Focus in on that. Feel it. Go in there. Ask for the Father to reveal the truth of who you are in that place. How do you see me in this place, Father, where I believe I'm alone and nobody loves me? Okay, and you just wait for an answer. Now, it might not be a quick thing. You might have to go through a few layers of belief to get to that statement of what your emotion truly believes. Take some time because we've been building layer upon layer of protection and lies and self-manipulation to where we're trying to claim truths intellectually, but deep down under here, we don't believe one bit of it. Your belief has to become experiential for it to be living faith. Mental assent is not faith. Follow me? Okay? So a thematic lie, you just see a whole bunch of them. Just look for it anywhere in there and you'll get it, okay? Another one is, let me see if I can think of another one. So you got the lies by osmosis, the thematic lies. Anyway, there's another one. There's several of them. There's link lies. That's where another memory is actually attached. It's another situation. You come over here, you're in this memory, and you're trying to do the work, and you're not getting anywhere. But it's actually bleeding over from another belief system in your mind. So you just say, no, Father, can you take me to where this is linked? And it'll take you to another memory that's linked directly to it. And it might be it's usually something that happened prior to the trauma and right after. So sometimes you'll hit the trauma, but you'll still feel pain after the Father comes in and brings truth. You're like, oh, what is going on? Well, it's linked to right before, leading up, and right after. We had that happen in many sessions. Honey, what's the name of the lie, the category of lies where it was once true, but it's no longer true? Metamorphic, that was it. Yeah. So a metamorphic lie is a lie. And when I say lie, we're not invalidating people's experiences. It's the experience happened, but it's what I believed about myself that's less than how the Father sees me is a lie. Okay. And so that would be a metamorphic lie. It was once true, but it's no longer true. Give you an example here of a woman did sessions on this years ago. She'd be doing dishes and her husband would come up and hug her and she'd just feel claustrophobic and it always turned into a fight. Get off me, get away from me. And he's like, what'd I do? I don't know. When you hold me like that, I just can't breathe. And their sex life was struggling. And so every time they would attempt to make love, she would push him off and she'd feel claustrophobic and she would feel pain shooting in her back like needles. So By the way, you can have body memory too. How many have experienced body memory, right? Getting ready to go to court and you're sick to your stomach. Okay, there's some fear in your history. Your body remembers these things. So sometimes you don't get a memory. All you have is a body memory instead of a mental image. Follow the body memory. Father, can you take me to where I first felt this? Okay. And we took this lady back into her history to the time where, again, I'm using fake names here for the sake of confidentiality, where Uncle Joe raped her behind the barn and she was laying on gravel being pushed and held down. So she was feeling that gravel, 35 years later. It was once true, but it's no longer true. You got out. But her mind was still stuck back there. So we went back into that memory, and the Father showed up and said, "You're free. You made it out. You're not there anymore. You're okay. You escaped." Boom. Sex life was great. They could hold each other all the time after that. It's amazing. So when Jesus set people free, he didn't just wave his hand over them. I know we want to say that everything is an instant miracle, but it's not. There's a lot of things that are progressively unveiling in our lives, okay? Instant miracles are great, but what has it done to the body of Christ? It's made them jealous. It's made them feel like left out if they don't get it. But I'll tell you what brings a lot of glory to God is enduring to unveil miracles. Because people become encouraged and inspired. If that person can walk through that, I can too. And so there's something beautiful about that. And so Jesus, I'll give you one last example, and that is remember the woman that was caught in adultery? Of course, how would those guys have known she was caught in adultery unless they were enjoying the show? Right? And anyway, do you think that her mind was really in the present when all those guys were going to throw stones at her? Nah, that emotion was from her childhood where she was molested and was only good for sex. Okay, so when she's standing there and Jesus says, "Neither do I condemn you," it wasn't hitting her present situation. It was hitting her childhood rape. And it translated all the way into the present. And she was able to go and sin no more. She didn't need any counseling. She didn't need any deliverance. She went and sinned no more. She didn't return to that mistaken identity because when Jesus was speaking, the present situation had triggered her history. And he spoke into her historically. That's like the tongues of fire that were on the heads of the apostles in Acts 2. I mean, I'm just giving you one side of a possibility in which we can see something here. Everybody heard it in their own language. Now, there's different ways to say that. Maybe they were speaking Greek and Roman and all of that. But what if you speak my language because we have a similar past? What if those tongues of fire is the Father's language that supersedes my vain imagination? See, our vain imagination wants to exalt itself against the knowledge of God, but there comes an exalting of the knowledge of God against vain imagination when you have a tongue of fire or the language of heaven superseding your own mindset. And everyone heard their history come into alignment with God. They heard it in their own language. Let's go deeper. Let's renew our minds. Be renewed in the spirit of your mind. You have a spirit running around in your mind? That's not what it's talking about. The spirit of your mind is the subconscious. You are conscious of 1% of reality right now. 1%. And you are only conscious of 3.5% of your subconscious. 2 feet of space is your world. As far as you can see and comprehend. So all this stuff going on in our minds that we're not aware of, that's the spirit of your mind, the heart of your belief system. So God knows that the only way he can deal with your pain is to bring a present situation that will begin to trigger it and expose the lies you have believed. Everything in the present that opposes you is your deliverer. And you do not have to sit there resisting this, that, and the other and scoring yourself. You're simply learning to abide, entering the rest, yielding to the Father. Okay? Remember, if everything God made was good and everything he works together for good, why are we trying to figure out how to get out of this situation so we can be in a place that's good? In him you live, move, and have your being, right? Which means everything you're beholding is good from the Father's perspective, but twisted according to our perspective, right? We're either in the world or we're in the earth. Are we in the spiritual mind or we're in the carnal mind, right? So come on up here, and can you bring one of those chairs? Yeah. And I'm going to set you up with a microphone. I'm going to have you just perfect. You just set it right there.
Back to her.
Yep, back right there. And we're going to put this microphone. You might have to eat the mic a little bit. We'll adjust it when you get over here. Go ahead and have a seat right there. And I'm going to put this to the side, but it's going to have to be kind of close to you. Well, talk.
Hello.
See how close? All right. Yeah, somebody grab her some tissues there. And I want to say, go ahead and talk into that mic again.
Hello.
There, okay, it's that one. All right.
God is good.
There we go. Gave you a little bit more volume. All right. And so the way this is going to work is we're going to focus in on the present situation. Now, the present situation isn't this weekend because it's been glorious. All right, guys. There can be no noise while I'm doing this. Are we having a snack break? All right, everybody got their snacks? What does it feel like to not have that snack? Now you know what drove you to get a snack. All right. So let's go ahead and focus in on this, and I want you to just feel it here. Everybody settled? All right, no whispering or talking. I will call you out. All right? There's a reason for this, because if we pull her out of this, we just lost the trigger. Triggers hide. You ever notice that? You're in a situation, the pain is arising, you find your way of escape. You quote the scriptures, you pray, you do this. Oh, it's gone. Next week, here it comes again. But there's an event that has to come in. And each time you bury it and justify it, the event has to be bigger to penetrate it. So if you wonder why your life situations won't change, it's because you haven't embraced your pain to get healed of your mindset, because your mind is reflecting what you believe externally. So the moment your mind changes, your circumstance will line up with the new mindset. All right? It's just as simple as that. God won't need the inroad. I used to deal with a lot of rejection from pastors. So, and really what they were doing is they were rejecting my rejection. They didn't have any idea. They were rejected too in their own minds. But they were rejecting my self-rejection from the Father's perspective. So once I got healed of rejection, I had favor with pastors. God didn't need the inroad of confrontation to deal with my mind anymore. The opposite is what I received, right? And that's what you're going to get here. We're just going to do a mini session as a sample and a demonstration, and we'll set up a full session later, okay?
Yeah.
All right? So why don't you tell me, you sit back there, and we're going to talk for a minute, and I'll have you close your eyes, and then I'll have you focus in on what you feel. I will not give you anything. This is going to be you hearing directly from God. It has to be your experience. If I prophetically speak into your life, if I tell you to focus in on something, if I say don't think of pink elephants, what are you going to think of? Pink elephants. Guess what? You can be talked out of that experience. But the way we're going to do it is you'll you'll never be able to talk yourself out of the truth. It'll be maintenance free and you'll never have to visit it again. Okay, period.
Okay.
It cannot be lost because you could never talk yourself out of the lies. So once it's replaced with truth, you can't talk yourself out of the truth. Okay, it's your personal experience. Some of you, how many in here have had a shift before? Raise your hand. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in here that have had shift sessions. Do they work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. You got all these people rooting for you. They've been right in the same seat as you. But you know the difference is you're courageous enough to do it in front of all of them. And thank you.
Doesn't feel like it.
Your
So-
sister said she's watching and with you.
That's right. All right. And nobody on the camera can see you anyway. So you're good. All right.
Okay.
So you can only see me.
I just want to say to the people that are listening or watching, this is not easy, but it's necessary. And for freedom, for the breakthrough in the mind, like you're talking to, and to overcome and to fulfill who God created me to be from the foundations of the world, I have to walk this out. I have to do this
Yes.
from where I'm from. And I just say to everybody that's listening or watching that, this is an opportunity for you as well. And from what I hear, it heals, it transforms, and, and brings you to complete wholeness that always was. And that's why, I'm here.
Amen.
Yeah.
That's the best reason to be there.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have, let's put this on your lap. All right. That way you don't have to reach.
Okay.
All right. Now what I want you to do is let's share first. And once we get into the emotional, I'll have you close your eyes so that you're not distracted. So you said you were sitting over here and you were feeling anxious, right? Why do you feel anxious doing this?
Exposure.
Exposure.
I'm going to be exposed.
Okay. I want you to go ahead and close your eyes and feel that. I want you to just feel exposed, right? Because you are, right? I mean, it is truth, right? You are being exposed right now. I want you to just feel that. All right. Now, what is that? What does your mind, that emotional part, believe about who you are when you're exposed? Who are you when you are exposed?
Well, the first word that's coming to mind is fake.
Fake. All right.
Like I'm a fake. Like,
Okay. All right. Focus in on that you're fake. And I just feel that. Feel that sense of feeling like a hypocrite, fake, all of that, a pretender. I just feel that right there. Now, Father, can you take her to the first time she believed she was fake and a pretender? Let's see what memory pops up. First thing that comes to your mind, whether it's a word picture or a memory, share it with me.
all I'm seeing is, I don't know, I was, 5, 6, 7. I can't see, he's not showing me exactly what that trigger was, but I went into a full-blown anxiety attack. And I was terrorized by what was happening to my mind and my body. And I couldn't, it never occurred to me to go to my mother or my stepfather, who I know was who created this. And I just felt terrorized.
Okay. Stay in that place. What do you feel as you think about it now? You're going to be seeing today's view and you as a child. So I want you to, you can look at both, but focus in on that child's view. Because it's now present. We're outside of time. You are in your past, in your mind, and that young version of you is experiencing that anxiety and terror. And when you feel that, what do you believe about yourself in that place where you're experiencing this anxiety?
I just feel there's something wrong with me.
Something wrong with you.
There's got to be something wrong with me. Why am I being treated like this?
All right. Just feel that. When you think about and feel that there's something wrong with you, what do you believe about yourself?
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't have that. It's like you were saying, As a child, I didn't have the information to process this.
So you can feel that confusion there.
Yeah, it was horrible.
All right, just stay in that and feel that. Give yourself completely to feeling that experience that has devastated your entire life. It has followed you. You have not been able to escape it. Just feel that. Now, Father, what is the truth that you want her to see, that you want Tracy to see here, of who she is in this place, where she's fake, she doesn't know what to do, what is wrong with her, and there's all this anxiety. What do you want her to know about who she is in this place? Let's see what the Father reveals. Just wait and feel. First thing that comes to your mind of what you're sensing, just show.
He's saying that I was never alone.
All right. Just feel that. What does that feel like, that you were never alone?
I feel comfort.
Okay. All right, stay in that place. Now, Father, what is it that you want her to see here concerning her stepdad and her mom? You had said that they were part of this, right? All right. And so we know that when we're dealing with forgiveness is not a prayer you pray. It's making restitution here. So, Father, can you bring truth concerning what was going on in her parents' minds that would cause them to inflict anxiety or pain or abuse? What is it you want Tracy to see here in what they have done to her in this place? Let's see if you bring some clarity as to what motivated them to do these things.
I don't know if it's my flesh. I just see I'm just hearing selfishness.
Okay. What do you feel when you hear that selfishness? What's the emotion that comes up when you hear that they were selfish? Does it make you angry at all?
I know it's the truth.
It's the truth. And so do you feel any emotion when you hear that?
It's like unbelief, like I'm here, I'm right here.
That they couldn't,
They just weren't available.
they weren't available. All right, I want you to focus in on them not being available. Now, Father, why weren't they available? Well, let's see what the Father reveals here about how he sees your parents.
I know the Father's love. I know he loves them now as an adult.
So what is it that would have caused them to act and react the way they did?
They're broken.
Broken.
This is out of their own brokenness.
Okay, out of their own brokenness. So in other words, out of their own unresolved issues,
Yes.
they just kind of projected them on you. Does that feel true?
They were not capable. They
Okay.
didn't have, like you were saying, the tools.
Okay.
They didn't have the tools.
So when you look at this childhood situation where why can't you see me? All of that. Why am I left to myself, not knowing who I am? What's wrong with me? How do you see your parents in the light of what the Father just revealed, that out of their own brokenness that they did that? What's the first emotion that begins to rise up?
I would say anger.
All right, I want you to feel that anger. Just feel it. I want you to think about why you're angry. And just report to me why you're angry.
If they didn't know what the hell they were doing, they shouldn't have had any kids.
Okay, there you go. All right, feel that. It's very justifiable. You have the right to be angry. All right. Now, what does it feel like to not have the right to be angry?
To not have the right to, I have the right to be angry.
Yes, you do. But if you give up your right to be angry, what does that feel like?
Then I'm back to square one.
Okay, back to square one. Can you describe what that means, back to square one? It's okay, feel it. There's a lot more memory starting to come into this situation. Just feel that. You got to walk through it. Now, Father, if she lets go of her right to be angry in this place, in this memory, Will she be back to square one?
Actually, no,
No? Why is that?
because she is mine.
Okay. All right. So do you feel that you can give up your right to be angry, to get to this pain, this anxiety, this I'm not good enough, what's wrong with me? Sharon, come on up here. She was going to share this morning. So nobody reminded me. Thank God I just remembered. But Sharon was going to come up and share this morning about some of the things that she was going through that led her to today or this weekend and what the Father has transpired through that, right? So go ahead and take 10 minutes or so and share.
Well, it was, and I've had shift sessions, but it seems like the Father just takes you through various things to break off the lies you haven't discovered yet.
That's right.
They're still in there. And recently, I just went through some situations that really triggered me. My husband asked me to leave last September, which was not a traumatic thing at the time because I'd kind of gone through 3 years of hell and I was ready to be released. And that was my release. And I was okay with that. Went down to Cyprus and was living with my sister. But what happened was I started going to this church and the pastor asked me out. And we began to have this relationship, which was fine. But all of a sudden, like a couple of weeks ago, he hears God tell him that we're not supposed to have this relationship. And I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated. And it was like all my old triggers just came to the surface. I was having a really hard time dealing with it because it just felt like I was totally worthless, totally rejected.
Yeah.
The whole way up here, I just cried. I was like, God, I don't know how to handle this. This is like rejection on rejection on rejection. And I said, you've got to do something. You've got to help me shift. And I just want to thank all of you because just being with you and just feeling the love of God, it was so powerful, especially that first night. It was just like so much love.
Yes.
That I just feel like God's healed that. I mean, I'm sure there's still going to be stuff that
we're going to do a session tomorrow anyway.
Yeah, that will need to be cleared out. But it's like you can't imagine how much better I feel because after I drove 12 hours, and I was desperate. You don't drive 22 hours unless you're desperate. But I got to Nashville. It was after 12 hours, and I'm here in this city. And I was staying in this hotel, not in a very good side of town. And oh my God, I was just so low. I mean, I can relate to Sandy and what you were feeling in coming here because I was like, if God hadn't brought me through so much already, I would probably be suicidal because it was just like, I called my sister. I said, I feel like I'm out of my mind. I'm just out of my freaking mind. What am I doing here? What's the solution? What's the answer? And I just went to bed, took some vodka and went to bed.
Yeah.
And the next morning, about 4:20, God woke me up. And I just started feeling this gratitude, like I'm alive, I'm well, and I know God has a purpose for my life.
That's right.
I don't know exactly what it is yet. And then the other night, I've known Brian and Shauna for 13 years, and I met them in Amarillo in April 2009.
That's right.
And the very first meeting, he called me out and he said the very words you gave me last night, the other night. which was that God has a sound to come out of me. He's prepared. There's a feast that's prepared for God to experience, for people to experience the goodness of God. There's a feast.
That's right.
And what you said, Brian, was that the years and the experiences, because I've just gone through a lot of devastation in the last 13 years, that it has prepared me
That's right.
for delivering these gifts to other people.
Amen.
And I was just sharing with a couple of the girls before the session tonight that I had this picture the other day of bluebonnet seeds. And I had done some research on them. I was trying to grow some seeds. And you actually have to crush them, scrape them, soak them in water, and in order for them to germinate, and even then it might take 2 years of them being in the ground before they spring up. But they're so beautiful when they do, and they just cover the hillsides. And that was just a picture of us. We're seeds, and these
Yes.
things we go through, the crushing and the breaking, is to allow that beautiful identity that's in you, that's the real you, to come out.
It's beautiful.
So I'm just looking forward to see what God's going to do. I have no idea. I don't have a plan. I am in free fall, which
Yes.
I absolutely hate. I totally
But
hate
the
it.
great thing is you never hit the bottom.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with y'all.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Isn't that amazing? I almost forgot. I technically did forget. She was supposed to come up in the beginning, but nobody reminded me, and I forget everything. And so I sure am glad she was able to share that, because she was talking with us earlier about that. And I said, you really need to share, because it's important everybody hears each other's testimony, because we overcome by the word of our testimony, right? And you know why we overcome by the word of our testimony? Because it's not, you didn't even know you had a testimony until you overcame. So what makes you more than an overcomer? It says we're more than, because others overcome by your testimony. Because it shows they now relate because they've walked there. And that's what gives them the power to overcome. And so it's so important that we share our journey together. But thank you guys for your patience and for being here tonight. And now you can go and fellowship. You have one last thing? Okay.
I know we took up an offering yesterday, but we're always grateful for anybody who wants to give. So maybe somebody can grab a bowl or something, and we will pass it.
There's a bowl.
Okay, there we go.
And if you want to sow
Yeah.
online, you can go to www.foggm.org. That's for Father of Glory Global Ministries. And you can sow there. For those that might be watching on Facebook, you can go right into Facebook Messenger and give as well. And we do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we love you all online. We'll see you soon. Have a wonderful evening. Anyway, let's release and have some fellowship. Oh, one more thing. I almost forgot Sharon. I wanted Sharon really quick before we release.